Greetings and welcome to Unscripted with Andy Tosh. This is a show that aims to provide you with an alternative perspective that is uncensored, and at the same time, this is where success crowns class. Don't forget to follow me on all my social media handles at AndyTosh_, and also don't forget to hit that subscribe button. My guest today is a leading African-American theater, music, events, and documentary film producer born in Harlem in New York. He's an executive producer and founding member of the New Heritage Theater Group. He's also an executive producer and co-founder of Impact Repertory Theater. He has produced and co-produced theater, music, and television projects, film festivals, and music tributes in the United States, in Japan, and South Africa, and also in the UK, including producing Mbongeni Ngema's Tony and Grammy-nominated South African plays Asinamali and Sarafina. Technically, this is the gentleman that opened doors for Sarafina. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome my guest, Mr. Voza Rivers.
I am so happy to be here today for this interview, Unscripted. When I arrived and I saw this handsome young man approach me with such enthusiasm, I knew that this would be special. So I'm glad to be here to meet him and to continue dialoguing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rivers. It's such an honor having actually met you and actually doing this interview together. Thank you so much. So there's an African awakening that's currently taking place where we see Africans from first world, second world countries, from all over the world looking to trace their roots back into Africa. Why is it only happening now?
Well, this is in 1619, 400 years ago, was when the first Africans arrived into the Americas as we know it now. So we are in America celebrating 400 years of being in the United States. And you can't do that without tracing your history and knowing where you come from.
That's true.
And so there's a lot of regeneration around the African connection for all of us right now. And there's a great enthusiasm that's permeated all throughout the communities. I come from Harlem.
From Harlem,
which
that's
is
based in New York, right?
Yes,
all right.
Which is an iconic community of African Americans, Afro-Latin Americans, and others that have given us the title of the cultural capital of Black America. That's what Harlem is known as. So when you say to someone that you are from the United States, when they meet me and I say Harlem, there's an automatic reaction because they have heard of Harlem.
They have heard of Harlem.
And our goal this year is that our local history creates a global impact.
Yes.
And so that's what we do wherever we go.
That's interesting. So I just want to take you to back in the days when you had Sarafina rehearse over the telephone and you instantly said that I want these people in the United States of America. What is going on in your mind in that particular moment?
When we trace the history of my involvement with South Africa,
yes,
I have to give credit to Duma and Groove.
Yes, sir.
Duma was a young man, a student in the United States, very close to Hugh Masekela, and I have a theater company in Harlem.
Yes.
An African American theater company. And one of our producers and actresses by the name of Phyllis Yvonne Stickney brought Duma by the theater to discuss the cultural movement that was taking place in South Africa during the height of apartheid.
Yes, yes.
This is in 1984.
1984, that's way back.
Yes, that's way back.
That's way back.
So through Phyllis Stickney and Duma started telling me all these stories about South Africa and its cultural underpinning. And I found it to be very fascinating. It just so happened that the Market Theater had Mbongeni Ngema and Percy Mtiwa in New York at a theater doing a play called Woza Albert.
Voza, yes, 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 yes.
And they took me to see Woza Albert because my name is Voza.
Also, Voza, the rhyming of the names.
Immediately when the guys met me from South Africa, they thought I was South African.
Oh, interesting.
And in fact, when you see photos of Mongani, there is some similarity,
And
skin
resemblance
tone
as well,
and
definitely.
resemblance. So it was through that relationship that those two actors who came to the United States did a wonderful job, or won what we call the Obie Award, which is a prestigious awards given to off-Broadway theater, said, we have been in the United States, we have been downtown, but we have not seen any blacks coming to see the show. Why is that? And then I explained to them what was happening, and they said, well, where's your theater?
Yes.
I said, it's up in Harlem. They all heard of Harlem. They said, well, we have to go to Harlem. I said, but you can't come to Harlem because you're here under a production contract. It says that you leave South Africa, you come to the United States, you're in one location, and then you go back. Fortunately, the two actors were so convincing that they wanted to come to Harlem that we found a way to bring them to Harlem and get major news coverage. From Soweto to the Village to Harlem. New York Times kind of
covered that entire.
Yes.
Because I was with Babu Mbongeni
Yes.
2 days ago. He actually came through. He came to pay a visit at my office just the other day, and he narrated the story to me. It was quite fascinating that the play was doing very well, but he was often intrigued to say that, but where are the black people? Why am I not seeing the black audience? Because I've produced this work for the black people. And that is when he told us that from there, the show moved to Harlem. There were some challenges happening around that time.
Yes, of course.
But you were able to make it
right.
happen.
That's right.
And to a large extent, he actually went to the ticket box and to go find it exactly. Are you sure that this is a paid event? Because the way it's so packed and there's a lot of black people, I doubt that these people are paying. And to his surprise, he was told that this is fully booked for the next coming 6 months. And that was like, wow.
It was amazing.
I can imagine.
It was amazing for this small theater company in Harlem, 99 seats. When word got out that the show was going to come to Harlem, we squeezed in 200 seats into a 99-seat theater. People were coming up with folding chairs. They were bringing their own chairs because they heard the theater was so small and there weren't any chairs. Mongani promised me that he was going to come back home. He was going to write another play.
Yes.
And that second play that he wrote was called Asinamali.
Asinamali.
And he said, I don't care, whoever wants to do it, you have to do it first, and it has to come to Harlem first.
Definitely.
So we did 5 weeks, sold out, and it was phenomenal. Quincy Jones, Harry Belafonte, Paul Simon, Lady Smith, Black Mabaza, all of these guys, when they were coming through, had to come and see this South African play.
Wow.
Well, a year later, Harry Belafonte, Miriam Makeba, Paul Simon, Duma, and others took Asinamali to Broadway.
I heard, and I was like, this is amazing. These are stories that a lot of us still don't know, and how it came about. And this is an exciting moment now.
Went to Broadway and got nominated for a Tony. Okay, so again, the validation of the work of Mongani and Gamer and the young artists coming from South Africa was just amazing.
Oh my goodness.
And for me and my theater company to be involved was another kind of blessing. It was like a divine order that this should happen, because then they go back and they write another play. And that third play, of course, is Serafina. However, I'm listening to Mongani. He's talking to me about what he's doing, but he never tells me that there are 35 actors. I got a 99-seat theater, remember?
For 35 actors now.
And he's talking about bringing in 35 actors and musicians and children. it was above, it's like my
Oh
pay
my
grade,
goodness.
okay? But luckily, because of the 2 previous shows,
Yes.
we were able to get Lincoln Center Theater, which is a major downtown theater, to now partner with us to make sure that committed artists could bring that show to Lincoln Center Theater. And once it was in Lincoln Center Theater, we then took it to Harlem so that the Harlem people could also get a sense of it,
Exactly.
because at that point we thought that the young people were going back to South Africa.
Yeah.
The producers of Lincoln Center said we recouped all of our investment in this play. And Voza, what do you think? Should everybody go back to South Africa, or should we go to Broadway? And naturally I said we should go to Broadway, because even at Lincoln Center, they had us in a 300-seat theater.
Yeah.
They still didn't have the black community coming to see
actually
it.
watch the shows.
So they did a deal with Duma and I to give us X number of tickets for each show so that we could guarantee that there would be a black audience. When it was decided to take the show to Broadway and to another theater, and we would be involved in all the marketing and promotions, they had an advanced buying of tickets that Broadway hadn't seen before.
Oh my goodness.
For Sarafina.
That
Sarafina
is
was on
amazing.
Broadway for 2.5 years, and it did a national company and then the international companies all over the world. Thanks to Committed Artists and the work that they created, they allowed me to head up Committed Artists US. And I negotiated a lot of the contracts for them as the show started going to Japan, going to Germany, going to other places. The South African community validated me and says, this is your project, and we want you to head it up. Remember now, Sarafina was the big one, but Mongani's next play was called Township Fever. And that had 37, 38 actors, and we did that at the Brooklyn Academy of Music.
Yeah.
It was slated to go to Broadway, but we couldn't get a theater. But again, just to being involved at this level with South Africa and Harlem, and the talent that comes from here, it's a divine mission for
I can
myself.
imagine.
Yes.
I can imagine. So I understand that during your guys' era, you were fighting a different struggle whereby your solace and weapon of justice, it was music more. So I need to understand that in terms of theater and liberation of stories, would you say that you have achieved what you wanted to achieve?
We've achieved what we wanted to achieve, especially with the stories coming out of South Africa. Because there were stories of struggle, activism, and commitment, all demonstrated in the storylines and the singing, etc. So for our audiences, it was also a rallying cry, because when Sarafina was on Broadway, and the number of blacks that actually understood through the music of the kids and the storytelling that they needed to also support the dismantling of apartheid. And that's what happened. We also were invited to the United Nations to perform. We also received the Medal of Peace from the United Nations for the work that we did with Sarafina. It was amazing. It was amazing. Of course, you had your political parties and you had ANC, but when Sarafina came, that message was real clear. Nobody had to hit you over the head.
Yes.
Not only did you get the message, but you felt it.
You felt it, which is more important,
Yes.
the feelings around
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Oh, wow. So now, we look at the current economic landscape, particularly in the arts and entertainment industry, which, by the way, it is the driving force towards a greater GDP in each and every economy. What lessons would you impart to up-and-coming artists, to people that are looking to get into this industry? What is it that they need to do so that they can understand the business of the arts entirely?
You know, this is a really good way to go into a conversation. In America, a lot of our actors go to colleges and take courses on all aspects of acting,
Yes.
directing, playwriting, all of that. When they come out of those schools, they want to go to the major institutions, theatrical institutions. The small theaters, like mine, it's very difficult when an artist comes out of school with an enormous financial obligation.
Oh, yes.
And so they're looking where can they get paid so that they could continue on their track.
Makes sense.
For us, what we have been able to do is to provide a training ground for them in spite of it, but you have to come with a commitment because we can't compete with Broadway, but what we can offer you is the experience that you want. When I started out in theater, I was a volunteer. No money, volunteering because of the work that the theater was doing. I volunteered for 6 years. The artistic director came to me and said, his name was Roger Furman, and he said, Voza, I just love working with you. You have a really good business sense. I want you to take over the business side of what we do. And we formed this partnership. But when I was a volunteer, you could see me taking tickets when you came in. You could see me in the box office. You could see me doing maintenance in the bathroom or taking my car and picking up props.
Oh, yes.
Focusing lights, painting sets. I learned all of that, not out of a book, but by doing.
Thank you for watching part 1 of Unscripted with Andy Tosh and Voza Rivers. Stay tuned for part 2 and don't forget to follow me on all my social media handles at AndyTosh_, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button.